their settings. Okay. All right, whenever you are ready, John.
Okay. The time is now 5:38 p.m. and I am calling to order the South End Landmark District Commission, July 7th, 2026 public hearing. Commissioners present are Commissioner Chris DeBoard, Commissioner Catherine Hunt, Commissioner John Freeman, Commissioner Felicia Jacques, and myself, Commissioner John Amadeo. Did I miss anybody, Rachel?
Nope.
Okay, great. Today, the Commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027. We are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the South End Landmark District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All further conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has adjourned. Are there any media or elected officials currently present? If so, please raise your hand using the Zoom meeting platform and state your name, title, and affiliation. Rachel
Not
or
seeing anybody.
Anybody? No?
No.
Okay. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. And tonight's agenda begins with ratification of the June 2nd meeting minutes, followed by design review. We have an advisory review, then we vote on administrative review and conclude with staff updates.
Great.
So we'll start with the ratification of the June 2nd, 2026 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. We can go right to a vote. John,
Aye.
Felicia,
Aye.
Catherine.
I thought I wasn't voting.
Nope, you can. There are 5 people here. So my apologies, Catherine.
Okay, aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. And we'll now go into design review. The first item on design review is 65 Worcester Street. The proposed work is to replace 2 windows at the front with 2 fibrex windows. Staff, do you at this point read staff comments before we proceed?
Yes, really quick though, if someone's raising their hand, would you mind if I see if that's the applicant or not, John?
I'm sorry, Rachel, did you ask me a question?
I did. We have someone raising their hand, so I just wanted to see if they're the applicant, and then I would make them
Okay,
real
sure.
quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Rachel, it's Peter.
Oh, hi, Peter. Oh, great. Awesome. I will make you a co-host. Great. Okay, so that means Peter is here, which does mean, Catherine, that you are unable to vote. Peter is here, and then if everyone could mute themselves if you're not talking, that would be great, because I'm hearing a little background noise. Awesome. Okay, so give me 1 second, and I will read the staff comment. Okay, so staff recommends denial without prejudice. The proposed windows do not meet the required standards for windows in the district and feature fibrex and 3/4 inch muntins. And then if the applicant could raise their hand, we will unmute you and you can share your presentation. Okay, is the applicant present? Go ahead and raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. We'll give you a minute. You also can send us a quick email, rachel.erickson@boston.gov, RACHEL.Erickson, ERICKSEN @boston.gov. Jackie, are you seeing anyone?
No, I'm not seeing anyone, and I haven't gotten an email relating
Okay,
to this application.
then we will skip this one for now and move on to the next agenda item. Okay. All right, up next is 10 Bradford Street. If the applicant is here, go ahead and please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone.
While we're waiting, I'll note that the work is the replacement of 4 windows at the front with 4 fiberglass windows.
Thanks, John. Let me see if
Rachel, I can I'll notify them via email, both the applicants.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Just wanted to make sure I didn't turn on a setting by mistake that was preventing them from raising their hands. Oh. Okay, now we'll move on to the next agenda item. Whenever you're ready, John.
Oh, I'll
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
87 Pembroke Street. Proposed work is to remove existing chain link fence and install new decorative fence at the front garden.
Yep, and then a staff comment for this is approval as submitted. We do not have photo evidence of the historic fence. The current submitted plans for the fence design replicate a historic fence that was located at 89 to 91 Pembroke Street, adjacent to this current property, in which we provided that image that was taken in 1941 from 89 and 91 Pembroke.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel
Right.
and Jackie.
And then Jess, are you the applicant for this project? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, this is Paul Sorrentino, actually. I'm representing Joseph Holland for this, yeah.
Great. I have your slides, so let me know when to move to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, so for the purpose of this, with just the fence, yeah, you can see in the elevation there is just an existing chain link fence. I went back in the photos, even from the 70s, it was chain link. So we're just proposing replacing it with something just to match the character of the neighborhood. I had sent over an updated sheet last week that has a little bit more information on the balusters. I couldn't find those exact ones, so I'm just trying to replicate it as close as what I can find.
Getting that over to you right now, Rachel.
Thank you.
Just sent that over, Rachel, so you can share it.
Thank you. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was just trying to replicate what I can find based on some catalogs. So the height is going to be based off of the next door neighbor's railing, and then just trying to get, like I said, the baluster as close as we can. So I provided the other, I'm not sure if I can definitely get you some additional information if you need it, just on like specific products that we're going to be using for the balusters and the posts on this. But it's all cast iron, will be painted black.
Okay, is that the end of your presentation?
It is.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Is it Paul?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, I'm
okay,
on
great.
my wife's laptop here.
Okay, I'll try to remember that, Paul. Nope, thanks, that's great. So we'll ask commissioners for questions first, and then we'll go to comments. Chris, any questions?
Is this, these are going to equate something that's on the block? Or
Correct.
something, okay. And you said from which house? Or which-
89, so the property directly to the left of this as you're facing it.
Okay. And okay, and you said you were gonna look, you found these in a catalog?
I found something similar. It's not the exact same shape, but it's in the same style.
And,
Just-
and you
just
have
to
to cut them down,
interject.
or they're gonna match you said they're gonna match the height of the neighbors.
Yes.
Just to interject, we were able to locate the catalog images. I just sent that over to you,
Oh, thank you.
Rachel.
That's my next question, Becky.
Yeah, perfect. But it's not a one-for-one match, but through a lot of digging, I was trying to get as close as I could find.
Are you bringing up another image, Rachel?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It'll just take another second.
Uh-huh. So while we're
I mean,
waiting,
I'm sorry, I was to say my comment is that there's a lot on that street, even right across the street at 92, 94, that have the original fencing up. So there's a lot of good examples of historic fencing on that street.
Yeah, so here we go. This is more of what I was looking for. So again, it's not a one-for-one match. And I'm open to any suggestions, honestly, for where I might be able to find something closer, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
um, before I go to the next commissioner for questions, I just want to clarify the image on the screen, Paul, is that what you're proposing? Because
Correct.
that's what you
Yeah,
found?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And it doesn't exactly match your neighbor, but you think it's close.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Peter, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I have a few. From the illustration on the upper left, it looks like there's a return of the fence at the property line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what is the top rail going to be?
So you can see that in that matrix of 4 images. on the top right, there's like a molded handrail. That's what the proposal is for the top.
Okay, and how is it going to be attached on the bottom?
So it sits over a 1-inch flat bar, which is going to sit over those baluster panels, and then that molded handrail sits on top of that.
Thank you. That's all, John.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. Felicia, any questions?
No questions.
Catherine, any questions?
Yes, is there a photo or did we see it of what's there at 8991?
In that existing picture on the bottom of the sheet, you can actually see a small portion of the neighbor's railing on the left side there.
Ah,
Yeah.
Okay,
mhm.
good. And did we hear staff comments on this? Sorry if I missed that.
We did, and if you need it repeated, I'd be happy to.
Just give me the end result, Jackie. Thank you.
Approval is submitted.
Thanks. Okay, good. That's it for me, John.
Okay, great. Thanks, Catherine. I don't have any further questions because
I
my
do.
fellow commissioners asked. Oh, I'm sorry, John, I skipped over you. Go ahead.
I sort of fade to the background sometimes. My question is about the
Hardly.
corner post, because I'm looking at Google. This won't delay the application, but I think it's a curiosity. Your neighbor's corner post matches their railing on their stair. And it looks like the railing on your stair is existing, but has a different corner post. So what I was wondering was which, and the one that you're proposing doesn't seem, as far as I can tell, to match either one? Or how are you handling that?
Yeah, so I mean this like again just falls into the I'm trying to work with what I was able to find. So I was just like the pineapple top is similar to the existing one, and then just, like, stylistically I was trying to get something that was close to what's existing on our stairs.
Is it pretty close? I mean, it's a little hard to tell just from the Google pictures.
It's roughly the same profile, like the base is similar, like it's similar widths. The height is similar. It's just, the detailing isn't one for one. But I tried to get as close as I could.
Okay. I'm just wondering because it's introducing a third type, and that may be the best solution available. But it caught my eye, so I brought it up.
The stair newels seem to be a little bit different than the fence newel posts, John.
Not at the neighbors. That's
Well,
why I'm
across the
asking.
street, the same fence, they are. But
And looking down the street from what I can see. Okay, I mean, I don't think it's a deal breaker. I just wanted to point it out. And wonder if there.
Jackie, since it's been brought up, could you zoom into the bottom left photograph again?
nice caddy.
And focus on the bottom of the stair at 87. The other, yeah, to the right. So that we can see the newel post at the bottom of the stair.
A little to the left.
A little to the
Sorry.
left.
Sorry, it's kind of slow.
Our left.
There we go. Okay. So yeah, the base and the overall dimensions are similar, but otherwise it's not an exact match.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So those are my questions. So let's go to comments. Catherine, do you have any comments?
Nope, seems fine to me. Thank you.
Okay. Felicia, any comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Chris, comments?
Yeah, just since we do have a lot of intact fence on that street and the metal stairs, if we could keep it as close to what is already there existing on all those properties, I think that would be great rather than introducing something completely different. Keep a nice sight line. That's it.
Okay. Peter?
No comment.
Okay. And I don't really have any further comment.
You're forgetting me again.
Oh, sorry, John.
I don't
know what's
mind.
wrong with me.
I have guests coming in. I can just go see them and say,
It's
Good night.
my bad,
No,
John.
I actually had one more question, and that was just about the curb. And there's an existing curb, right? You're planning to reuse that?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. It just looked a little taller in your drawing, so I just wanted to check on that. Other than that, I mean, I think it's fine. I really appreciate the effort to try to match everything, and I think that's great. I think it's going to look great. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah. I concur with what John said, and so I'm glad you spoke up, John. I shan't miss you again.
I bet.
And I think we're ready for a motion. If there's no further discussion.
Go for it, Chris. I nominate Chris to make the motion.
Chris says, we accept this application and appreciate the effort in trying to match as best we can with store-bought, if you will, railings. And I'd like to just one proviso that we just pass the final picket choice by the by staff.
Second,
Second.
Peter will second.
Okay, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll go for public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Anybody raising their hands? Jackie, by the way, is Sarah here?
Sarah's not here right now.
Okay,
So I'll be monitoring. Currently no raised hands and no emails regarding this.
okay. Then we'll go to a vote. Felicia,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
I vote aye.
John,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thank you very much, Paul. And good luck. And yes, be sure to follow up with any updates on the exact picket style with staff.
Will do. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so are we going on to the next application, or has somebody arrived from one of the earlier two? Or both of the earlier two?
The project representative for 65 Worcester Street has arrived, so we're going to be going to that one.
Okay, great. So just as a reminder, 65 Worcester Street, the proposed work is to replace 2 windows at the front with 2 fibrex windows.
And then Dale, you have been made a co-host, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Apologies for
Okay.
not seeing you
And
soon.
can you give us your full name, please?
Yeah,
Since your
my
name's
name
not
is
on the
Dale
slide.
Fuller from Moynihan Lumber Company. And
Okay,
Awesome. And so Dale, I have those slides that I shared with you earlier. So go ahead and
Oh wait,
oh.
have to the staff
so this
comment.
is the
Oh,
existing
right.
windows.
So Dale, I'm
Hang-
so sorry. I reread the staff comment before we proceed, and I read it at the start, but I will read it again. Okay. So staff recommends denial without prejudice. The proposed windows do not meet the required standards for windows in the district, given that they feature fibrex and 3/4 inch buttons.
okay. So Dale, have at it.
So this is your existing windows currently there, which are made from wood. You know, and then the new windows are going to be made out of a product called fibrex, which is actually wood and plastic that's ground up and mixed with a resin to create a maintenance-free product and then painted black. The grill bar is 7/8. The outside is black, the inside's white, and you can't see that from the outside. So we've done and building 67, which is right next door, I don't know if they're part of the same association, but in 2021, windows were approved. This same window that we're scoping here was approved for 67 Unit 4. And there's 3 windows on the front face of that building that's the same.
So staff would like to say we pulled the file for the project, and in 2021, windows were reviewed by the commission. However, they were approved with a proviso that cut sheets were sent to staff, and I was unable to find the cut sheets, so I'm unable to confirm whether or not staff approved fibrex windows for this building.
And the person we had in our office is no longer with us, so I don't have any reference for that as well. She's no longer with us, so she would have been the one that would have handled the permit and did all the back work for that. So at this point, I'm not sure. I mean, we do have 3 windows in that. We've done a couple of units there. There was another name, and I couldn't pull it up. But I think this is either 3rd or 4th customer for that same building. So at this point, I don't know which direction you want to head into, whether this is going to be acceptable or not acceptable. She'll have to research out a wood window, but.
Were the dimensions of the other windows also the 3/4 mutton and the, was that the only dimensional difference, Jackie?
Yeah, so back when we did it in 21, 7/8 wasn't available, but 7/8 is available now. The other units were higher up. So I don't know if your requirement is 7/8 or 5/8 or
7/8.
Yeah, so they do have a 7/8, which I put in the cut sheet. This one actually shows 3/4 that we have in here, but I sent the new one. I don't know if we have one more, Rachel. The one I sent you the end of last week.
Oh yeah, he did send me this exact same window with a 7/8 that I can pull.
Because this one was listed without the 7/8, it had the 3/4. So Anderson now has the 7/8 available. So as far as the mutton bar, it would be look the same from the street view.
John, may I ask some questions?
Yeah, carry on.
Right, so I have to say first that McLeod and Moynihan supplies windows for some of our projects. So I don't think there's a conflict of interest, but I have to put that out there. I think dimensionally, it's important that the new windows match the historic proportions, historic dimensions. But I think it's time that this commission needs to start considering new materials, because all of the window manufacturers are coming out with very wood-like, or have come out with new materials. And if we can't approve this tonight because it technically doesn't meet our requirements, we need to put on our agenda for the future or near future to start looking at some of these other materials, because they're very nice windows. They all have some alternative material that is stable, longer lasting, more durable. And we do allow aluminum clad windows, so it would be a similar kind of process. But I know I jumped into comment there, but it's pretty clear.
Okay. No, all good information, John. Thank you. So Peter, any questions?
Yeah, 2 questions. What floor are these being proposed for? Is it the parlor level?
Yeah, this is first floor right on. So when you those windows, I could actually touch the bottom of it standing. If you climb in, there's like a fenced off area, but
yeah,
I can touch the bottom of it. There's 73 or something inches tall, so you can't come close to touching the top. But
and my second question is, why are they replacing them? I did go by the property and I realize the windows that are in there currently are not original construction windows, but from the exterior view that I saw, they look to be in very good condition.
they're doing it because of heat loss. It's a very big window, and there's no weather stripping. So that's what her objective is, to get a more energy efficient. She has a tenant that's complaining about the drafts and the amount of air leakage they're getting. So the main window's staying intact. The only thing we're doing is really replacing the sash. We're putting a window within a window, but it looks like a regular window.
So is this a replacement window or is this new construction?
This is replacement. So the only thing that's really changing is the sash portion. All the woodwork and everything around the outside of the window is staying.
So it's actually going to shrink the glass dimension slightly?
It's about 3/4 of an inch that it shrinks.
Yeah, that's not
Because
allowed.
it sits in the sash opening, and
Right.
once you trim it off on the outside, all we do to really trim it off is a bead of caulking on the outside in between that frame and the.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and you guys do a nice job. I will say that. But
Yeah.
that's not allowed because it would be it changes the alignment. It's specific in our. I don't know if Jackie, you pulled up or Rachel, there is a sheet that shows the dimensions, but the dimension of the glass profile has to stay the same. So usually that means new construction windows. Unless the old ones all do not meet the historic profile. So I think this needs a little more clarification.
Yeah, I don't know what the existing current glass is, and I mean, I can give you I can get the current glass size for mine from Anderson Corporation.
Are there any existing historic windows in the building or next door?
I don't know that answer. If these are the sash of, some people will make a pair of wood sash, and she can go that direction too. But it doesn't give you any energy efficiency. It just basically changing what you have now and making it new. Like you said, I don't think the window itself is failing or rotting out. It's just they're trying to get more energy efficient. And and like I said, there's insert windows in 67 and a couple other units there. And I don't know how it got through the cracks without going through you folks, and that wasn't my objective.
That's fine, we understand.
Yeah, so she got referred by Tower Mulhall, which has the same window in her house, and that's how we end up with Sophie.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Rachel. This is a little different than our staff comment, but would it be crazy to suggest a subcommittee for this so we could go on site and take a look and then look at the neighboring building as well to kind of resolve the concern about the actual window glass area shrinking? Do you think that would be an efficient way to do it? Or we could continue this and staff could go on site and try to resolve the issue and bring it back to the commission?
I think either way, I'd be happy to be on the subcommittee.
I can be on it too if we want one. I just think that any replacement that is going to lessen the glass area, the glass size, unless it's a new construction.
It's not allowed to do that by our regulation.
Understand.
Same as the dimension of the meeting rail, of all of that is specified. And there's somewhere in the files, there's a window profile with all the dimensions. But it does say that the most important feature is the overall glass dimension, because that's what your eye reads the most. I'm just repeating what's in our regulations, but it's been there a long time. I think if there's a subcommittee, we should also be talking about material.
I just think as far as from my point of view, the Anderson new construction window has a more modern look on the outside than the insert window is, and I understand the glass and the difference between that, but she would have to search out a different window manufacturer to go with the replacement window, just because it's not going to look correct, because the Anderson frame has a 3/4 face on it. It's not going to look.
I know we can't recommend windows, but I know you guys carry Marvin. And some of the Marvins have a much more compatible historic profile.
Yep.
I think there are other windows that do as well. I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. And you have me mixed up. I'm not McLeod Moynihan. I'm just Moynihan Lumber out of North Reading, Mass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to set that straight. You said
All
that
right, thank you.
earlier.
Well, in that
So
case, there's definitely no conflict of interest.
So it's Moynihan Lumber, North Reading, Mass.
I think you have also supplied, but that's some of our
Yep.
North Shore work, but that's all right. Maybe the confusion's there too.
I have just a question, just at the matter of the product. It says on there's a sheet that, it's the mixed polymer or whatever it is. You never have to paint it again. Well, do they come in black? Because you said you were going to
Yes.
paint. They do come in black because you said
Yeah, no, it comes black right from the manufacturer, right
Okay.
from Anderson Corporation.
Perfect.
And, it's a wood. So Anderson, that's how they got rid of a lot of they reused their waste, scrap wood and scrap vinyls ground up and recycled into this product. They hold the trademark on it.
All for it.
Yeah, so it worked for them.
Thank you.
So,
John, it's Peter, I do have
Yep.
another question.
yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Could you explain how this window is improving the energy efficiency of the current one?
So what we're doing is taking a wood frame window and putting a window within a window. So that's where you lose your 3/4 of an inch. So the window sits actually where the SAS balance system is currently, like a jam liner, let's call it. So this sits in that, what we call a window pocket. So that's where you're losing the 3/4 of an inch.
I'm talking about the energy efficiency. Can you explain how your proposed window is improving the energy efficiency over the existing one?
So it comes with an Energy Star rating on it because we're building a window and then putting a window within a window and sealing that into the old frame. So we're building a window to go inside a window frame. So the existing window frame stays, and we're building a window that comes with an Energy Star label on it.
Are you saying that the old window does not have the same energy efficiency as this one?
You just
haven't
don't
explained.
have the weather strip in the ceiling around the sash. So when you have an old, whether it's got jam liners or it's got weight and pulleys, there's no weather stripping on the bottom of the sash, interlocking medium rail there and at the top. And depending whether it's weight and pulley, I know the ones in there aren't the original sash because they have jam liners. So that means somebody made a swap out at some point from the original sash that were in that building when it was built. And probably no permit was even pulled. I'm assuming they just had sash made and put them in there. But there's not weight and pulley in there currently.
So I'm still not fully understanding this. So are you saying that the new window, the major difference is that there will be a jam liner on the inside of the window?
Yeah, it's built into so the Woodwright's built into the window, so it's a block and tackle balance in the edge of the sash. So the frame, there's a wooden frame, just like you'd build a wood window, right? And then on the outside of the sash, they make it out of fibrex because it's maintenance free and they can make it last because wood won't last as long. And then the inside's real wood. And then there's the frame of the windows, real wood, and then they add these block and tackle on the edge of the sash, which is screwed to the jamb of the window, which operates that function to make the window sash go up and down. So there's weather stripping on the edge of the sash that meets with the frame of the window that creates that seal, same as the interlock where the two sash meet together. And then there's weather stripping on the bottom and the top where it meets the frame on the top and the bottom of each sash.
Peter, we could bring this up in a subcommittee.
Yep. I mean, I know that's a secondary issue given the shrinkage of the glazing, but
It's important.
And the material.
right.
So
Can I make a motion to deny this without prejudice and?
Could we have
Yeah.
everybody make a comment
Yeah,
before
I
you
was-
start
I'm
making the
sorry,
motions?
I apologize.
I was just going to do that. Catherine, if you would like
Thank
to have
you.
a comment, please do.
Thanks. Well, in a more, pardon me, in a more general vein, going back to the type of material being proposed here, other than what was presented in 2021, which I guess was the same material, have we seen this before?
So in
And
2021, I'm sorry to interrupt, Catherine, it was unclear what material was presented.
Okay.
It was listed as administrative review and it said wood window, but the cut sheets were
yeah, I
needed to be
understand.
resubmitted and I couldn't find it, so we don't know for sure.
I understand that, but my question is, or comment, haven't we in the past had companies come before us and present information about a new material that they're trying to propose rather than having a specific application so that we're aware of this material in advance and we can either okay it or not okay it for future applications? Wouldn't that be a good thing to do?
Absolutely.
But hasn't this also been on the market for a number of years?
It doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. Catherine explained the process as we've done it before, Chris. And we've made changes to the policy for windows and other items because of new material, the advent of new materials that we found to be acceptable once they were presented to us, separate from an application.
yeah, exactly. That way we don't have to, debate this.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that would be a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, agreed, Catherine.
Absolutely.
Felicia, have I given you a chance to comment? If not, have at it.
I'm gonna concur with Catherine that I'm not sure how we can approve this at this time. There are just too many unknowns and questions around the product, and I think a presentation would be useful.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for the applicant. If it's a matter of weather stripping being the only difference between what you're proposing and the window that exists there now, it seems, why wouldn't a wood window of the appropriate dimensions not be equally energy efficient as what you're proposing? Because you could provide all the same weather stripping for a wood window as for a fibrex window.
Yeah, at one point you used to be able to buy, and I don't think they even sell it anymore. I'd have to double check because we don't sell Marvin anymore. But Marvin made what they called a sash pack. And you could buy a pair of balances and a pair of sash and measure it and fit it to a window, but it never worked out very well. Either the window's a little tilted, the window's a little out of square, and it never worked. And you can't trim it once you get it, and it wasn't cheap. So it was always a risk, and we did it early on. And it just doesn't, it's not feasible because you're spending a lot of money and still not getting the end result. The difference between what on a replacement window, when you're doing what we're doing, is we can square that up even though the building is no longer square.
But why can't you do that with a wood window as well as you can with what this new material is?
I'm sure there's a couple of companies out there that maybe, and there is, I know there's Boston Sash in town that may make a pair of sash, but again, you're running into that same thing where you're trying to fit it to an existing window that's maybe not 100% true. So it's hard for them to make a sash that's crooked to fit an existing window and make it work, because when you're buying sash and balance system, you can't control the top and bottom or left and right of that window. When we make a window, we're only deducting 3/8 of an inch off of that to fit that into that opening, but we're making a window that we can square up and make energy efficient. A pair of sash is very hard to make, and like I said, you can't trim that once it's there. But they can go in that historical direction and have Boston Sash, Green Mountain Windows, a couple of companies out there making it. But every year there's less and less companies making wood because it doesn't survive for the most part. But there is, custom people out there available to do what you're asking. It's just not, you can't get any efficiency out of it. You're not going to get any ratings from any manufacturer making just pear sash for another window frame.
Well, I'm going to leave that for a subcommittee of what I think will
Sure.
be John and Chris to determine, but I appreciate your response. But John and Chris know more about windows than I do, so I can't really comment on your answer.
Sure.
So I think we're ready for a motion now, because I think I've gotten to everyone. If I haven't, speak up, please. John, it seemed like you were ready to make a motion earlier.
Sorry, I muted myself. Should the motion be deny without prejudice and send it to a subcommittee, or continue it and send it to a subcommittee?
I would say continue and remand to a
All right,
subcommittee.
so moved.
Do you want the subcommittee to be a voting subcommittee to make a decision, or do you want it to come back to the commission?
I think that dimensionally we could approve something because that's very clear what dimensions meet. But as far as materials go, I think it should come back to the whole commission, partly for education. I mean, what's going on, just very briefly, is the energy codes are getting more and more stringent. And right now there is an exception for historic buildings, but standards are changing. People are expecting more energy efficiency as well. So in some ways it's getting applied to historic buildings. And there may be standards in the future coming that will require historic buildings to have more efficient windows as well, which I actually think is a good thing, but we'll defer that discussion to later. But that's what it's actually more complicated than just flashing and weather stripping. So maybe we can make a dimensional approval in the subcommittee, but I think the materials or other things that would go against our regulations have to come back to the full commission.
Okay.
Okay,
John, Peter
Yeah.
here.
Peter?
Before we move this to a motion, there's an existing window committee.
There
That's
is, you're
supposed-
right.
So
There is.
that has met once. I don't know quite what happened. Yeah, John, you're on it. Were you?
Were
And I
you,
think-
was it you and me?
And Chris, I think, as well.
And Chris.
Hmm.
That's, we should do that then.
Or do you want to have a
Yeah.
subcommittee and then report back to us, I guess, the window committee, or to take that, because it sounds like we're all part of it anyway.
Yeah. There's no reason, Peter, you couldn't be part of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
Um,
it's the window committee meeting as the subcommittee.
But if the applicant comes back with a fully compliant window that meets all our requirements, then the subcommittee can approve it. But otherwise, I think we need to report that. Yes. Good call, Peter.
So shall I second that motion?
Maybe we could have the motion reshared.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Restate the motion, John.
To continue this for further information and remand it to a subcommittee of the already existing Windows subcommittee.
Thank you.
But you should specify that anything related to materials comes back to the full commission.
Amendment accepted.
Okay, there's a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's been seconded, so we'll go for public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov.
So we don't
Uh,
have any written comment, but I do see a hand raised from Kathleen. Kathleen,
And can we
Yes.
get your full name too?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Kathleen Zhu. I'm a resident on Appleton Street. I just wanted to comment and really encourage the committee to make a decision on window materials. I think, you know, we're at a time where there's a lot of innovation in materials, and I don't think, I would say like the majority of South End residents would not want to, you know, challenge the historical character of the neighborhood. That's why we're all here. But I really encourage the committee to revisit innovative materials, because that does open up a lot of possibilities for homeowners, and especially with climate change and like the durability of materials. I just think like I just think like when we're able to have, you know, improvements, we should embrace them. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well
And
said.
Kathleen, yeah, well said. And I believe what Commissioner Freeman said earlier, Kathleen, was along those lines. We're willing to receive a presentation from a product rep for this new material so that we could determine if it is something we can adapt to our current standards and regulations. So we have, is there any more, are there any more hands raised, Jackie?
no more hands raised and
Oh.
no other written comment.
Okay, then we'll go to a vote. Peter,
Aye.
Felicia. Felicia? Are you here? Are you muted? Felicia, you're still
here.
muted. You're there, but you're muted. I'll come back to you. John,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Felicia, are you still there? Can you vote? If not, Rachel, may I ask Catherine to vote?
Yes.
Catherine,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thank you very much, and we'll continue this with the subcommittee. And is the applicant now here for 10 Bradford Street?
Yep, so would there be anything that I could get you, some samples or something that would help you folks, just so you have something to look at?
I think what we should do is probably reach out to some of the manufacturers. If you want to try to hook up with Anderson or whoever else you carry and help us arrange that, that would be great.
You know, I'll
And
look
see
in
what-
and get you some samples, something you can look at, just so you have an idea of what, you know, the two different, whether we approve an insert or not approve an insert.
Mhm.
But at least get you what the framing looks like, and so you have a better idea. So,
Can you make sure you get black if you have it?
sure.
Thank you.
And we can coordinate you can coordinate that with staff, just the logistics of getting those samples over to us, and we'll be in contact with you.
Who is best, or is it Rachel will reach out if I
Rachel,
have
yeah,
samples?
you can reach out to Rachel.
All right, I have her email, so that'll be easy.
Thanks, Dale.
Okay,
Thank you for your
So-
time tonight.
yep, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Dale. We're going to go to 10 Bradford Street if we have an applicant here. And that is, the work is to replace 4 windows at the front with fiberglass windows.
So I actually don't think the applicant's here. We didn't hear from them via email. And I just wanted to give them another opportunity. 10 Bradford Street. If you're here, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting function, or you can shoot us an email at blc@boston.gov. And I'm not seeing a raised hand. We'll
Okay,
let you guys know if we see them. But that being the case, I think, John, then we should just move on to the next application, which
Sure.
is 10 Chandler Street. So if you give me a moment, I'll slide down to it.
Okay, we're going to talk about 10 Chandler Street now. That is a master signage plan for the new Animal Rescue League of Boston building. So if the applicant is here, please give us your full name. And if more than one person is going to be speaking, please all introduce yourselves with your full name.
Okay, I've made Bob and Edward co-host. Is there anyone else on the call that I should make a co-host? Oh, I see John.
I think there's just the three of us, Rachel.
Okay.
It's fine. Hi, this is Bob Baldwin, Project Manager for Animal Rescue League. Edward?
Hi, I'm Dr. Edward Schettino, President and CEO of the Animal Rescue League.
And hi, good evening. I'm Jonathan Garland with JGE Architecture and Design. A couple other folks are joined on the call from Illuminate. They're our lighting vendor. If there are questions, we can refer to them. That would be Eric Petrochenko, I believe, is on. And then some other support staff from our design team.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Great. And before we get started, our staff comment is we recommend approval with the following provisos: that staff are invited to all on-site mock-ups regarding material, lighting, etc.
Okay.
Okay, whoever is going to lead the presentation, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. You have it up, Rachel? Okay,
Yeah.
next slide, please.
And you can, if it's easier for you, Jonathan, you could share your screen, but I have the presentation.
Okay, we'll go off this. So just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, this was the imagery you're seeing before you. The next half a dozen shots will be what we showed and shared at the last time we were before you. The biggest change you will see here, really two big changes. One is that we are now proposing that this sign, which you can see from Chandler Street, be moved up one floor and placed at the higher level of the building, largely to do with the preservation of the mature trees. And you'll see in further imagery that if we were to install the sign at this location, it would be completely hidden by the trees that currently exist, making it a moot point to even purchase or install signage at that location. Next slide. This is also a previous image, again, just for reference, showing the building from Chandler Street. And if you've driven by lately, it's under construction. It's progressing quite well, actually. Next slide. This is the same sign that we're talking about. There's also another sign that you can see in this image to the lower right, which we intend to keep as part of our proposal. That's the main entry. We're calling it along Chandler Street. This is where the surrender and adoption of dogs will happen on this side of the building. Next slide. Coming around the corner to the Chandler Tremont Plaza, you have the Ellis Street Neighborhood Playground to the far right in this image. This is also that same Chandler Street sign. Next slide. Again, a close-up of the main Chandler Street entrance. Next. And then moving around, this is a view that you would see through a series of trees, both on our site as well as in the public realm. There is signage that is out on Tremont Street, namely, so that it's very clear that this is still the Animal Rescue League. We want to make it certain to anybody coming to the facility from Chandler or Tremont that this is the Animal Rescue League facility. Next slide. Then you can see here, this is the one and only sign that references the Boston Veterinary Care. This is an emergency entrance aspect or element of the building. So therefore, it's another entry point. As you go into this main door, you'll go up to the top floor of the building, and that's where the emergency care would happen. But we want to make sure that that entrance is visible and that guests are not parking on the opposite side of the site to get to emergency case on this side of the property. Next slide.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Jonathan, before you move to the next slide,
Yep.
on that slide, the sign is very small. So could you just point to it with your cursor if you can?
Yes, actually, there's two signs there. I'm glad you brought that up. There's one on the wall that's there, and there are some other images that probably have better resolution. There's one on the wall that's there, and then there's also a sign over the canopy. The sign over the canopy is about 9 inches high.
And the messages are slightly different in those two signs. Is that
Yes,
correct?
this one says Animal Rescue League of Boston. The one on the canopy says Boston Veterinary Care.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Carry on.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So now this series of images is our proposed set of work, and this is what we're here to talk about today and seek approval on. So you can see in the far top left part of the image where we've moved the sign up a floor. We've also been able to study the building in its relationship to the trees now that the steel is framed, so we're able to see the building in the full context of the existing conditions, and that's really what's propelled us to want to move the sign up a floor so that it is visible at all. And so that's why we're proposing it at the top of the building. And then the other sign, which you can see lower right over the main entry, is still in its condition. Next slide. You start to barely get a sense of that sign, Rachel, if you can point to it with your cursor at the top right there. Really what you're seeing actually is the lighting apparatus. You're not even seeing the letters from this vantage point. So that's of note, whereas before you were seeing the letters from pedestrian level. In this case, the letters are generally out of sight, and you're looking at the lighting that would be proposed to actually indirectly light the sign.
Rachel, can you zoom in on that? Oh, sorry, or whoever, there you go.
In the presentation, there are a lot of zoom-ins of this
Okay.
condition, but that's basically the lighting infrastructure that you're seeing there.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide. We also have dimensions of the lights if that comes up. So this is the other sign. Again, main entry. You're seeing just a close-up of that entry arrival sequence. It's sort of top mounted. Next slide. Back to this same set, no changes here. Boston Veterinary Care over the canopy, and then the wall sign saying Animal Rescue League. Next slide. Okay, so now here's the formal signage package. If you move to the next slide. So what we are proposing in terms of quantity and general location, if you go to the next slide, Rachel, is still the same. So we are proposing a total of 5 signs on the building. And I would remind you that at the last commission hearing, we understood from the commission that the quantity of signs that we had proposed was acceptable. And we were sent back primarily for a lighting change because we had come in with internally lit letters, which we understand is not acceptable to the commission. We've since changed that so that there is light that will be shining on the letters, but not emitting from the letters. So we still have the 5 signs on the building, and then there are 2 additional site signs, which you see letters F on the parking lot fencing, and that just denotes rules and regulations around parking. Next slide. So again, here, this is that first sign, sign A as we're calling it, which is right over the canopy. If you go to the next slide, Rachel, it does show a close-up. So this particular sign is 9 inches tall. It has channel letters. They are 3 5/8 deep letters. And then on the face of the letter, it is a horizontally grained aluminum. So it will have the appearance of a brushed aluminum look. And then the returns on the letters actually match the Animal Rescue League theme color, which is a cardinal red. So the sides, or the returns as we call them, and we have close-ups of that, would be clad in the red, whereas the face would be the brushed aluminum. You're also seeing the lighting effect by way of the rendering to the lower right. And then there's a section detail that shows how the signage would be attached to the top of the canopy with painted galvanized steel structure, and then the housing of the lighting sort of coming off of that enough to shine back on the letters, and then the letters would be affixed to this steel structure as well. I should also mention, if you go to the next slide, Rachel, that please, if you can zoom in, each of these images are fully rendered with all of that housing that I had been showing in the section. They are in this rendering. So we've taken great care to make sure that the structure that supports the letters is really hard to see. For example, there are vertical supports behind letters like the T that go from clear top to bottom, or the north-south leg of the N, or again, the T in veterinary, or the R, the sort of north-south element of the R. All of the letters that allow for that north-south, we're providing angles that go from top to bottom that also support the lighting. And then there are some outriggers from the top that come out for the lighting. But we wanted to make sure that any structure that we're proposing is fully rendered so that we can come in and promise that this would be the end look, and you're not going to see any additional structural members on top of this. Next slide. And that's a consistent comment for all the signage. Next slide.
Sorry, 1 second. There we go. My apologies.
Sorry about that. Okay, so this is sign B, which is, again, you'll see this from Tremont Street behind most of the trees along the Chandler Tremont Plaza. If you go to the next slide, there's a zoom in of that. So this particular sign is 19 inches tall. Again, they are dimensional channel letters, 3 5/8 deep, the same exact typology in terms of the brushed aluminum face, and the red returns, the cardinal red. And even the detail, if you see in the section, that detail is exactly the same, just larger in scale from the one that we just saw over the Boston Veterinary Care canopy condition. And so that's the effect of that sign in the evening. Next slide. This is the one, again, where the previous location, if you move to the next slide. So not only has the sign moved up, we've also taken the privilege to correct our errors on the size of the trees. The trees were inaccurately rendered in terms of size at the last go round. Now that we're able to see the building, like I said, built and the steel is constructed, and we're sort of judging that condition relative to the tree canopy, this is really the current day condition of the building. And then you're seeing the proposed condition of the signage to adapt to that condition. Next slide. I should also mention that in moving the sign up 1 floor, we did reduce it in size just slightly. Here it's shown at 22.7 and 7/8 along the second floor there, or really top of the 3rd floor. If you move to the next slide, it is shrunken slightly to 22 inches. So again, just slightly, but we're trying to make sure that it fits within the height of the mechanical screen wall that's there. Next slide. So here you're seeing that a zoom in of that sign with the lighting apparatus. We did look at the light bar attached to the bottom, but what happens down at perspective at pedestrian level is that the lighting itself actually cuts across the lower third of the letters based on your sort of sightline angle as a pedestrian looking up, and it actually creates a distraction with the light bar cutting through the letters, and that's why we put the light bar at the top so that it doesn't have that sort of added element. Next slide. This is showing sort of the condition as if you were standing up on that roof parapet and looking back from the mechanical roof screen, which is to the left. And what we're proposing are galvanized steel outriggers that would attach back to posts that support the mechanical screen wall itself. And so those galvanized outriggers is what comes out to support the infrastructure of the signage. And as I was mentioning, if you see the back of the N, that's how we're attaching the vertical legs so that they are completely hidden behind the verticals of the letters themselves. And then we have these very small tabs on letters like the A and some of the other letters as you look down. And those tabs we think are going to be have a very minimal visual impact, so that all of what you see is the dimensional letter. This is also a good view to see the back painted returns of the cardinal red, and the finished face of the letter would be the brushed aluminum. And the lighting, we're working with Illuminate to have a very sleek linear bar that provides an even warm glow light across the letters. Next slide. This is the view from the Mass Pike, and I think this really shows everything and encapsulates our general purpose of moving that sign up one floor, because if you imagined it down a floor, it would just be completely disguised behind that dense row of trees. Next slide. And then here are some construction shots of the building right now. Tried to outline it with a black pen just so you could see it better. But that's the building with the trees in the context. So that's our exact condition. You go to the next slide. So what we came to you before was the signage located in the red. Again, it would be completely hidden. We're proposing to move it up to the black if that's acceptable. Next slide. And then this is the last signage element on the building, sign type D. Actually, there's one more E, which is the wall sign, but this is sign type D, which is over the main entry. You go to the next slide. This is the only one that is top supported, meaning it's sort of hanging from the underside of the canopy that's there. So it's basically that same detail. If you look at the detail to the left, it's the same one that we've been using for the canopy. It's just inverted and sort of mirrored top down, so that the lighting is coming from the top and shining to letters below versus the other way around. You can see the effect there. Next slide. And then that's the full condition of those two signs. And then finally, this is the wall sign that's at the Tremont Street entry. And you can see that the sign itself is about 39 inches square. Animal Rescue League, that's their formal branding logo and color scheme and font. And so we're just proposing to have that mounted to the building directly with a simple light arm that comes off and shines onto it. So none of these signs are internally lit. Everything is receiving light onto it. And we've tried to do a good job of downplaying your visual view of the light, but just showing the effect of the light on the signage letters. Next slide. You can keep going, Rachel. That's those signs there you can see. And finally, that one. These are the two parking lot signs. They just say private property, parking for clients and visitors only. And those would be in two places, one in the Chandler Street parking lot and one at the Tremont Street parking lot. Following this, I won't go through it page by page, but we have a full set of lightometrics or photometrics showing the lighting. Again, we have Eric on from Illuminate if there are any specific questions about color, temperature, or lighting. And then following that, we have lighting cut sheets of each of the light fixtures. There's only two types of fixtures. There's this particular fixture, which works for all of the signs except the wall-mounted sign. The wall-mounted sign has one other fixture type. So there's two different fixtures here. And if there's any specific questions on those, I can turn it to Eric. But that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Excellent presentation, Jonathan. So we'll go to questions from commissioners. Peter, any questions?
Just one. What is the color of the face of the light bar?
The color, do you want to take that, Eric? The color of the face of the light bar? Is he available to speak, by the way? Rachel, do you know?
He's muted.
Okay.
There you go.
You can unmute now.
Thank you all. So what we're doing actually with the,
Eric, can you give us your full name before you
Oh.
start?
I'm sorry, my name is Eric Petruchenko and I'm with Illuminate.
Thank you.
And to answer the question about the color, you can actually do a custom color on the finish of the extrusion itself. And so the goal and the conversation we've been going with is that we would choose a color that was the exact same or as close to the materials being used across the signage.
Thank you.
Okay. Felicia, are you back?
Yes.
Any questions?
No, again, I appreciate the very thorough and complete presentation tonight.
Great. Chris, any questions?
I do have two questions. I know in the initial presentation, someone said something about an emergency entrance, and I didn't see any of the signs that said emergency. I just thought ARL. Is that?
It's if I can speak, do you mind, Jonathan?
Go ahead.
It's the veterinary hospital. It's not emergency, it's just the veterinary hospital,
Okay.
Boston Veterinary Care. Currently, what's there in Chandler Street is going to be shifted over to Tremont Street.
That's fine, thank you. This is my vet, so I
Okay.
know very well.
Apologies for that. Yeah.
And the second question was the sign over the ARL Animal Rescue League red square. Is it high enough so some hooligan won't break it off, knock it over? You know, the extent the light that will illuminate that.
Is the light high enough?
Is the
you're saying?
light, you know, is
Yeah.
it I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Okay.
obviously anything could happen. And that's why I think there is going to be security. The site will be surveilled. I think proportionately it may look a little, well, first of all, if the light is higher, I don't know that we would get the effect that we need on the sign. We may end up lighting more of the wall than otherwise. But the light is higher than a person. I can
Okay.
tell you that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent presentation.
Thanks.
Great. Sorry, I was looking at the image. Peter, did I come to you for questions?
You did. I think
Okay.
Catherine may be next.
Catherine,
John?
questions?
Yes, thank you. So, are those trees going to get any taller?
I mean, I'm not the arborist specialist here. I can say that coming in the construction, they did receive what I would call a healthy pruning because we wanted to make a commitment that we didn't remove the mature, especially the old growth trees, that we worked around them and we found a way to nestle the building within them. I guess your question, Catherine, is like, will they continue to grow higher and start to cloud the sign?
Exactly.
Yeah, I am not the landscape arborist specialist on that. So I can't answer that.
Yeah, all I could, and neither am I, but they do look like they're, fully grown. They're actually in the park across the way. They're in the Ellis Park. They're not ours, but they seem to have matured, but I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll just make a comment. Yeah.
Catherine, I'm just going to note that I believe those trees are not large shade trees that are, still in their adolescence. I believe that they're mature but ornamental trees that have reached their full height. That's my understanding from my familiarity with that area.
Thanks. It's kind of too bad. I mean, I am going to comment that sign where it was just so cool. It was such a great element of the building. It's kind of too bad, but you got to do what you have to do. My second question has to do with the Boston Veterinary Care sign. Just so that I understand it, Jonathan, is the view showing it lighted at night, is that an actual light that will appear across the top and the bottom? Or is that just
that could have been the visual effect of the rendering. There is just a light bar at the top.
Okay.
There's no light bar at the bottom.
Yeah, it looked like it was underlined and at the top. So the light bar at the top is not just something that is projecting light, it's actually going to be lighted itself, right?
The light bar will have
Mm.
one face of the light bar will actually emit the light. The rest will be considered a housing. We don't anticipate the housing to emit light
Okay,
out to the public. The housing would be opaque. And so
got
to
it.
Eric's point, we can paint that housing to match, let's say, the color of the canopy. So it blends in. And the only
Nice.
thing that's actually emitting the light is the side that's facing the letters. And I didn't get into this, but there is a component on the lighting which we intend to use. There's a visor cap, and the visor cap actually comes down and helps really direct the light just to the letters. So it doesn't like pollute anything else.
Great, great. Yeah, that's all I have. And again, just an excellent presentation. This is such a great project. Thanks a lot.
John, any questions?
Yes, I think this is a great presentation too, and I think you've done a beautiful job designing these signs and lighting. My only question is that in a sign master plan, the intent is to try to anticipate any future needs so that you don't have to come see us if something should come up. And I just want to make sure that that's been thought about. Do you anticipate any, or can you anticipate any future needs that should be included in the master plan?
I would turn that to Edward or Bob.
I do not. All the services we have in this building is currently very similar to the signage we have in our current building. So any additional services we would just address with our website or anything like that. So no, don't
Okay.
anticipate any changes.
Well, if you think of something, bring it up with staff because it just saves time down the road. That's my only question. I think this is a great job.
Yeah, great. So we'll go to comments now. And John, since you're on the floor, any
So I'll
comments?
make a motion to approve this as submitted.
I'd like to second that.
Okay. We didn't get comments from everybody, but if there's anybody who would like to make a comment before we go to public comment, please do. If not, we'll go to public comment, having gotten a motion and a second.
Sorry, it'll take me a second to scroll. Spinning wheel of death. Sorry guys, my screen a little slow. Give me a little bit of time. Okay. Sorry about that, John.
It's okay, Rachel. So members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. And Jackie, anybody raising their hand or sending in written comments?
I do not see any raised hands or written comments.
Okay, then we'll go right to a vote. John? John Freeman?
Sorry, I was
We're voting.
muted. Aye.
Okay. Peter?
Aye.
Felicia?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thanks very much, team. And Jonathan, great presentation and renderings.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Very, very much. Thank you.
And we will now go to advisory review. And I'll just remind those on the call that we don't vote at an advisory review. And that is 35 to 43 Rutland Street. The proposed work is to renovate an existing building and add a vertical addition.
Hey, Cindy, I just made you co-host. Is there anybody else that I should make a co-host for this presentation?
Erin?
All right, Erin, you should be able to unmute yourself as well now.
And Rachel, I just want to note that I have to excuse myself for about 3 minutes. So carry on without me. You needn't wait for me.
And I will need to leave here at about 7:20 or so.
Okay.
Just before we
right.
begin, we do have a comment to make for this advisory review presentation. So staff met with the applicants to review this project proposal. We would like to remind the commission that the rear and side elevations, unless the work is proposed above the cornice line, are not within our purview. We would also like to note that the City of Boston Archaeology Program has noted that the site may contain archaeological features or artifacts because the site has a long history of institutional use as a school and orphanage with a female reformatory across the street. While the South End Landmark District Commission does not have statutory jurisdiction to require archaeology to take place, we have encouraged the applicants to reach out to the archaeology program.
Great, thank you, Jackie.
Great. All right. And so then if the applicants are ready, we have your presentation, but you're also welcome to share your screen if that is easier for you.
Yes, may I?
Yes.
Okay, can you see that? The full screen version?
Yes, I see your slide. I also see like all the bars and
You're
stuff.
not full screen just yet.
Move to the side. How's that?
Much better.
Perfect.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Cindy Lee with PEMBROKE. I'm here with my colleague, Erin. We'll be going through proposal for 3543 Wetland Street. Oops. Also here is the developer, Peter Georgentis, as well as Mark Lacasse, the zoning attorney. If there's any specific questions we want to direct at them. As noted, 3543 Wetland Street started out in the early 19th century as a school, but it has since been a 4-dwelling unit residential building. Our proposal is to renovate and convert it into a 6-unit building by adding an addition in the rear. We are aware that this is a unique structure, being a former school as well as in a parcel that is freestanding, meaning that there is full front yard and side yard, and we wanted to maintain those elements of this historic building. Just to orientate everyone, this property is on the northeast side of Wetland Street, and it abuts in the rear West Haven Street, which is a private way. And here's an aerial view with Wetland on the left and West Haven on the right. Here is a straight on view of the existing conditions. It is a symmetrical plan with entries and an existing driveway and curb cuts from Wetland. Zoning table. And some existing photos. The two on the top, 4 and 5, are views up and down from the private way on West Haven Street. And then the Wetland Street views are on the bottom. As you can see, it blends in very well with the other row houses that's along wetland, even though that it's got side yards that nobody else does. And then some existing conditions photos in and around the site. In the rear yard, currently it is a paved area used for parking. We are looking to, this is where we would, we're proposing the addition. On the side yards, we're looking to restore some of the former entrance, like it is shown on photo 4, from which is on the left-hand side when you're looking at the building, and now on the opposite side where it's currently bricked in, we want to be able to like restore that entranceway. Existing site plan showing the 2 entrances on either side that is being currently used to get into the buildings for the 4 units, and then the parking that's in the back. We will be removing the appendages that's in the back. They're non-original and they're entrances, bulkheads that gets you to the basement. In the proposed situation, we will be relocating the majority of the parking to a new under a basement garage, and the existing entrance that are on wetland, we will be making those active entries into the units to provide a more activated facade. Turn it over to Erin to explain the massing strategy.
Good evening. I'm Aaron Honsacker. I'm an architect and project manager at Embark. So I'm going to walk you through the architecture of the proposed addition. So here on this slide, you can see the existing 3D aerial view of the building. And on the right, we have the proposed view, the same view with the addition highlighted in light blue. In the back, we've gone through several design iterations in regards to the massing, and we appreciate the assistance we received from staff in getting the design to where it is currently, which is a massing that significantly reduces visibility and preserves the roof line of the existing structure from the public-facing view on Rutland Street, and preserves the existing historic character of the building, of this unique building. The addition itself is 4 stories with a partial 5th story penthouse, and includes roof decks on the 4th floor roof and balconies at the lower levels. Next slide. So this slide sort of explains our massing strategy to reduce visibility and preserve that historic character of the existing structure. The addition in the back, first of all, we wanted to keep it within the same datum as existing stairwells of the existing building. So you can see those 2 planes highlighted in yellow. We wanted to keep that side yard. We wanted to not encroach upon that side yard further than the existing building. So those are at the same datum there. In regards to how the roof of the addition connects to the existing building, the existing building has some ample head height in the attic space, which we wanted to make use of. So we wanted to connect to that existing building, but also connect it in a way that minimizes the visibility. So our idea was to connect into that top ridge line at the rear of the building. So when you're standing in front of the building, you don't see that roof at all. It's completely obscured when you're looking head on. And then lastly, we wanted to reduce the visibility of the penthouse addition. So we work to fine tune its position and setback in relation to Rutland Street. So it's positioned toward the rear of the site. And you'll see on a forthcoming slide that the sight line is such that you don't see that addition at all when you're looking straight ahead on the building. And also massing wise, we went with a mansard type roof for the 5th floor penthouse addition, which is going to soften the appearance of that addition and then help it fit in with the surrounding context as well. Next slide. So these next 2 slides are a couple of views from Rutland Street from either side of the building. So this view is looking north on Rutland Street, and you can see the existing on the left and the proposed on the right. It's basically the same image because you don't see the addition from this view. And the next slide is the same view, just looking from the opposite way. So existing and proposed, again, you don't see the addition in the back from this view. It's completely obscured by the building itself, existing building itself, and by the surrounding buildings. Next slide.
So in terms of the existing facade, we are looking to update the roof and replace the slate with synthetic slates that match. We are also looking to, in the historic photos, I don't know if you remember on the earlier pages, there was a vent here on the center chimney. We're looking to replicate that and cap off the chimney. The break will be thoroughly cleaned. There are selected locations where repointing will be required, typically below the windowsills and above the headers. We're also, it was interesting, the early discussions regarding windows. We're proposing Marvin clad windows here, matching all of the 6/6 configurations, as well as the transom that are over the doorways. There's no change to the ironwork and the curb. There is some repair that needs to be done, and we will replicate any profile that needs to remain. In the where?
Yep. So on this slide, we see a view from the rear of the building on the on West Haven Street, the private way. So we have the addition, which is prominent in view. The main mass of the building, which is that dark gray color, is intended to be clad in a charcoal standing seam metal panel. And then moving outwards towards the side yards, that area at the balconies becomes an acre wood look siding material in a horizontal installation. And then at the facades of the addition facing the sides of the building, we intend to clad those facades in a thermally modified wood siding in a vertical orientation. And for windows, they will be a casement window with casement aluminum clad window with the bronze color. And then we'll go through some of the elevations from all the sides of the building. This is existing elevation along Rutland Street. You can see it in the context of the surrounding buildings. Next slide. And this is it with the addition in the background. And next slide. And then same front elevation from Worcester Street. This is a juxtaposition of the existing and proposed. So you can see the replacement windows, replacement historic replica windows with the black color and the matching of the same 6/6 pattern on the windows. And then an elevation at the rear, you can see the existing facade is obscured by the new addition. And that's the garage entrance to the new addition in the middle of the proposed. And then on the side elevations, this is the east elevation. You can see the addition of the proposed on the right side, how the roof of the fourth floor is connecting into the back side of that ridge line, so it's not visible from the front. And then the elevation from the west side, it's basically identical to the east elevation. We're proposing to add skylights into that existing attic space in the existing building on both sides, but not at the front of the building. And then this slide is showing the sight line, what you would see from if you're standing in front of the building, straight ahead on Rutland Street, looking at the building. So if you're standing across the street, you can see the ridge of the existing building, but you can't see anything behind it. So you don't see the addition from this perspective.
That concludes the presentation.
Wow. Very good presentation. Thank you. And I want to commend the team for the work you've done in advance, working with staff to get the addition to where it is now. So I'm going to go to commissioners to find out if there are any questions before we offer comments. So, John, any questions?
Well, I just, Jackie or Rachel, could you just remind us of where our purview is here? Is it only the front facade?
It appears to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything above the cornice line that's visible.
From a public way is also in our purview.
But the side and rear under the is not under our purview.
Okay, I think I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Peter, any questions?
My question is actually for staff, and that's why are the side elevations not under our purview if they're visible from the street, from the public way?
So according to the standards and criteria for the district, rear walls or side walls, unless directly facing a public street or avenue, will not be reviewed.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Great. Catherine, any questions?
Well, I was thinking along the same lines as the guys. Doesn't Newland Street go through there?
It's in the middle of a block.
Newland, right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a few doors.
So there's no view from Newland.
No.
Well,
And it's not directly, that side wall of the actual property is not directly facing it.
Uh-huh. Okay, as long as we have no purview over the side wall, I don't know what there is to talk about in terms of that, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Felicia, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to be sure I heard the architect correctly. Did you say that it was 4 units currently and you're expanding with the new addition and it will then be a total of 6 units, or are you adding 6 units?
That's correct. Total of 6, just adding 2.
So it's not really within our purview, but I assume that you're sort of reconfiguring the interior of the existing building, or the entrance to the second building will come off of Rutland.
All of the units will be coming off of Rutland. We're gonna utilize, there's 4 entrances currently.
Right. So you are reconfiguring this existing.
Yeah, so these 2 end towers are stairs.
Yep.
So they'll get us up to the upper units, and then
Yep.
these ones on this perpendicular side will be dedicated entry to the first 4 units, the 4 units.
I see. Thank
Hmm.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very interesting, the description. So thank you.
Chris, any questions?
I do. Once again, this is a building I'm very familiar with, and I've been in the inside. The massing that is on the back of it is massive. Is that just required for project finances?
Well,
Yes.
Okay. That is my question.
Okay, and the answer was yes?
Yep.
Okay. I've got a question. Could you go to your site plan and verbally, if not visually, describe what is pervious and what is impervious?
Oh, sure. Currently, the front yard is half sort of garden-like, but it's not really well maintained, and then half pavement. On the right-hand side yard, this is mostly planted softscape. And then on the left-hand side where there's the driveway and the curb cut, this is all pavement all the way to the rear of the property. This entire backyard is pavement.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we're proposing new refurbishing the landscaping in the front yard, the walks that are into each of these entrances, and then providing patio space for the 2 ground floor units on each side yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then some parking in the back, but also where we can, more landscaping.
But also on the front right there, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. It seems to be an improvement, so I appreciate that explanation.
And there is how many total spaces will there be on the parking spaces on the land and then in the garage as well?
There's 5 outside and 7 in the garage.
12 spaces for 6 units. Okay.
Okay. So that ends my question. So I guess we can go to comments now. So John, do you have any comments?
I think John had to leave.
He might be gone.
Oh, that's right. He said
Yeah.
7:20 and it's after 7:20. So Peter, any comments?
There's a flagpole bracket on the front that I would hope that you would retain.
We will. I know exactly what where you're saying. It's right here.
Yeah.
Great.
That's my only comment currently. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Felicia, any comments?
Yeah. Would your timing, with respect to where the design development is right now and your timing to start construction, would you or the owners be open to allowing for there to be at least some targeted archaeology review?
I don't know if Peter is here to speak to that. Or Mark? I think it's going to be some time before we even allow to start design development or documents.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And, I know Joe and his group, they can mobilize pretty quickly. And I've done buildings where I've allowed that, and I know you hold your breath that nothing is uncovered in a way that could really impact your project. But if the owners could allow some targeted archaeology review, I think it would be very appreciated, given the history and given the thoroughness with which our archaeology department and the sensitivity with which our archaeology department does evaluate these very, very old sites.
It looks like there are some people who want to respond to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi.
and we'll get, excuse me, we'll get to that after all commissioners have commented.
Mhm.
So,
But just
anything
thinking,
else,
yeah.
Felicia?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Oh, great, thanks. Chris, any comments?
Yes, again, I think this is it's a beautiful building, and it was an original boys' school and girls' school, and those entrances were marked boys or girls for entrance and exits. So I know there is some other signage on there that if we could maintain as well, I think that would be very good for the neighborhood. And I think that also the archaeological findings might be very interesting too, because there is quite a bit of dirt on there and it's paved over. And I think, Felicia, you're absolutely right. They might find all sorts of toys and books and pencils not books, but things out of there that kids dropped and left. And I think its history should very much be highlighted. I know that the patios on either side are going to be very dark because the east and west where it's set up, they're going to be very dark, but they will be outdoor space. But again, the signage and the archaeology, it'd be I'd like to see both of those.
Great. Yeah, Catherine, any comments?
Just that it's a very interesting idea here as to putting an addition on. It's creative. So
yes,
that's it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just want to iterate what I said earlier in that I appreciate the teams working with our staff to reduce the massing or strategically shape the massing so that it is virtually not visible from a public way. And, that's, makes things easier for you and for us because essentially we're preserving the historic view of the building, which is our charge. So again, thank you for your attention to that and your collaboration with our staff and with us. And I think it's a very good solution that you have. And certainly, the point of coming to us for an advisory review is to find out if you have an approvable application or to get guidance from us to shape your application so that it would be approvable. And I think you're, pretty much there. But, for the archaeology question that Felicia brought up that Chris seconded, I would like to also jump on that and say that would be important to us and would be a good story for you to tell as well for your building should anything show up of interest. And I also want to second Chris's note that if there is existing signage that references the history of the way the building was used, such as boys and girls entrance, if those signs could be preserved
I have not seen those. Yeah.
Are they still there, Chris?
I don't know. I walk by it every day, and like I said, I've been in the unit in there prior to that. There's not a lot of historical insides. That's why I'm being kind of easy, because I like to maintain those, or at least the materials, as we all know. But I don't know that I know I've seen them, and I'm going to question some friends that lived there to see what they remember from the insides.
Right. So, but as you know, we don't have purview over the interior.
I know we don't, but yes, I just want to be reminded where.
Right. If there were anything carved into lintels or whatever that were to reference with the history use of the site would be of interest. But if there isn't, then so be it. But it looks like you're on the road to an approvable application, so far as I can see. So much appreciated for the thorough presentation, Cindy and team. So It looks like there may be public that wants to comment, but I'll just remind public too that we're not voting this evening. This is purely advisory. So Jackie or Rachel, if you'd like to conduct the public comment, go ahead.
I do believe that Peter is on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are team members who were going to
Oh, okay.
contribute to the talk about the review for the archaeological stuff.
Okay, then sure, whatever. We can take Peter's comment. Peter,
Hi, how are you?
good.
Good. Yeah, we would definitely be interested in learning more about the archaeological program, and especially if the timing works out. And one of the current owners is also on the call, and they've kept a great long history of this building and have documented a lot of stuff. And so maybe they can even take the lead on that, prior to any construction even starting, to get you guys in there and documented and digging and seeing what you can find.
Great. And Peter, just give us your full name, please.
Peter Georgantis, I'm the developer.
Great, thank you. And is that Penelope with a raised hand? Would you like to comment?
Yes, hi. My name is Penelope Shibley, and I am one of the current owners. Myself and my 97-year-old mother's on the phone. And so we've owned the building. It's been in our family for several generations, so since the 1940s. I grew up in the building, and my mother has lived there as well since 1961. So anyway, we're pretty familiar with it. And yeah, she's calling in right now. I don't know if she's I don't know that she can talk, but anyway, so a couple answers to a couple questions as far as signage. There isn't anything that I've ever seen, and I've been through every nook and cranny of that building in the last 65 years. So there's nothing that says boys or girls or anything like that. There are a few artifacts left in the basement, like there were restrooms and things like that. The yard is asphalt over brick, and so there was brick paving when it was a schoolyard, but at one point it got asphalted over. So, and I can talk to my family about, if there's a desire to go in there and do some digging or look in the basement, or certainly just get the history of the building. We do have some pretty good historical record of the building, which was a school until the 1940s. It was briefly owned by a veterans association. And in 1948, my family acquired it as from my father's newspaper, which was published there from the Midtown Journal. So anyway, there is a lot of history available, and we'd be happy to help the commission and whoever is interested in doing research.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else with a raised hand that I can't see? Rachel or Jackie?
I'm not seeing, well, Peter's hand is still raised, but it might have been from before. Peter?
Yeah.
Shaking his head.
Okay. So I
John,
think we,
I do have
yep.
another question, if I may.
Sure, yeah, have at it.
Are you planning residential space in the basement of the existing building?
We are not.
So there will not be any window wells or new windows proposed to be introduced at that level then? Is that
No.
correct?
Correct.
It's strictly parking garage, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think we provided you with whatever guidance we needed to. And of course, staff is always available to you as you develop your application. So thank you for your presentation.
Thanks for all your help.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Sure thing. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is to approve administrative review. Do I need to read that text?
No, you do not.
Right. Okay. So then can we take a motion?
I move we accept the.
Before we do that, I have a question.
Okay, Peter?
The 8th application down, which is for 87 Pembroke Street. Staff, are you aware that the windows are installed there?
Yes, we've been made aware, and we've discussed this matter with the applicants.
Okay, they look like they're going to be downsizing. from the framing. I'm not certain of this, but I mean, this goes back to our earlier discussion, but the glazing looks by eyeball, I'll admit, narrower than the adjacent building at 85. So I am somewhat concerned about, for those who haven't seen it, they don't have the brick mold on it yet, but it looks like they have possibly put 2x4s and 2x6s to frame out the window before they put the new windows in. So, Jackie or Rachel, can you comment on the size?
They're inserts?
Sizing of, I'm sorry, Chris.
Does it look like they're inserts as opposed to new construction, Peter?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like the brick mold is going to be quite wide on these.
Before we speak, Rachel and I, like in a preliminary sense, we're definitely going to look further into it. But thank you, Peter, for making us more aware on this matter. We certainly are aware that the applicants installed this already, and we've touched base with them on this, but we can certainly and will certainly continue that conversation with them.
Thank you.
And I've got a question about that same address. Installing a new egress window well with ladder at front, is that where there is no window well currently?
No, there's a window well there.
Well, I'm asking staff.
So at the current moment, I have to look back at the application. The installation, their proposal to the window well met all the requirements for it to be administratively or approved administratively.
Okay.
So for the specs of it, I don't have it up right now, but when we were reviewing it, it fell within the criteria.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that because we've reviewed so many window wells at the commission level. Just wanted to make sure of that, but it seems like you've got it covered. But does 87 Pembroke need to be removed from our approval based on the discussion, Rachel or Jackie?
I think so. What
Should we
they're the
continue
windows
87?
we could continue 87 and go and see if they have indeed not.
I think we can
Yeah.
withhold from administering the administrative review placard.
Yeah.
Continue to look into the matter.
Yeah. So
and
let's
yeah.
remove 87 Pembroke Street from administrative review only, but retain their design review application portion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was no question about the design review
So
portion.
we redo the motion to just remove that one and okay the rest of them. Is that?
Yeah.
That's
you
what
can
we
do
would do.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll update my motion then and say that we will accept the administrative review minus the application for 87 Pembroke Street, which will be back with staff.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion that's been seconded. I'll go right to a vote. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Felicia,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel and Jackie, for following up on that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if
we
you,
I
will.
hope
Thank
I'm
you so
wrong.
much.
if you're
Yeah,
in
but
town,
nevertheless,
I would
good
gladly
call, Peter.
come with
It
you
is.
if you're in town and want company looking at that. And they'll show you those stairs we spoke about.
Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Yeah, staff updates. I don't have anything coming to mind. You, Rachel?
No, things have been busy. We appreciate your guys' attendance as always, and thanks to those of you who filled out the attendance Excel sheet for the rest of the year. That's so helpful. And I guess keep in mind your availability for a summer get together per Chris's earlier request.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, great job, Rachel and Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah, great
You're
job.
welcome.
all.
Thank you,
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Happy summer.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor, voice
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.